Hello everyone. Today we're going to be taking a look at a software update from Rivian, and this software update is going to adjust the suspension, how the suspension feels. It's supposed to make the suspension smoother. So it's going to improve the suspension in low speed situations like parking lots and speed bumps, and it's also going to improve like transitions in the road so that they're not quite as harsh. Up to this point, those kind of things have been really harsh, and there have been a lot of complaints from people about them. But before we get into the video, I'm going to share a quick story about how we came to own two Rivians. If you're not interested in the story and you just want how the suspension performs after the software update, use the chapters down below this video to skip over this part of the video. Anyone who's been following my channel for a while will know that I've previously owned Tesla vehicles, specifically the Model Y, and I had two Model Ys. The first one was a long range, and that vehicle was very good, but I wanted to upgrade to the performance. So in June of 22, I got a Model Y Performance. And unfortunately, I had a lot of issues with that car. There was a noise coming from the front suspension, and I had to take it back to service 6 times, and they couldn't figure out what it was. They tried to replace a strut. Nonetheless, Tesla did agree to buy that car back. And in 2022, coincidentally, 1 week before Rivian raised the prices on the R1 line of vehicles, my wife and I placed a reservation for a Rivian R1S. Now, when Tesla agreed to buy back my Model Y, we weren't in a position to take delivery of our R1S. It still wasn't projected to come until January to June of 2024. And this was in February, March of 2023. So I found my R1T in Tampa, Florida, and we actually flew down there from Maryland to pick up the vehicle. It only had 200 miles on it. We paid a little bit more than what the first owner had gotten the vehicle for. However, it was still significantly less than the new MSRP. So that made our decision a little easier. Plus, we were able to get it right away. It was the exact color and configuration that I wanted. Fast forward, my wife got her R1S much earlier than expected. We actually got shop access, and in June we found her exact configuration in the shop and confirmed it and took delivery of it at the end of June. Needless to say, Rivian didn't provide these vehicles to us. Rivian is not paying us. We have no association with Rivian other than the fact that we're Rivian customers and we're very enthusiastic about their products. So I hadn't shared that previously, so I just wanted to share the story in case anybody's interested in how we came to own two Rivians. I wasn't planning on buying a Rivian for myself, but when Tesla was going to buy back my Model Y, my wife said, well, why don't you get a Rivian? And so that's how that came about. Originally, we were only supposed to have just the R1S for my wife. So now that we've got the story out of the way, let's go ahead and take a look at the changes that Rivian's made. As you can see here, I'm in all-purpose. Brake regen is in high, stability on, ride is in soft. And we're at the standard ride height. And I can already tell you that there is a little more roll, but to me it feels more natural, honestly. It feels more natural and predictable. We're going over some rough roads here, and we're actually going to go through town, and it's much more tolerable, I think, than it was previously. I do think Rivian needs to add a little more configurability. This would allow owners to have a little more control over customizing how they want the truck to feel. But the truck still handles very well, even in the soft mode, even though it's kind of bouncing side to side a little bit more. It's not anything really dramatic. But I can feel that some of the bumps and that sort of thing are much more in the background now than they were on the previous iterations of the software. think I actually like it better than the previous version. I read some reviews online and they were mixed. Some people really loved it and were singing its praises, and others were complaining that it was too soft and too bouncy. Now, I'm not getting that at all. Now, this is in the R1T, and my wife drove her R1S this morning, and she told me that the R1S feels tighter, and feels like she has more control of it on the highway. Now, I think some of the reason for the somewhat harsh experience in the Rivian might be because the tire pressures are really high in this truck. 48 psi is a really high tire pressure. So when you hit bumps and things like that, it's going to put more back into the cabin of the vehicle than it would if you were driving a traditional vehicle that had a tire pressure of, say, 35 psi. And the steering actually feels a little bit different to me as well. The vehicle feels more predictable. I have to say, I really like it. Now, we're going to get it out on the highway as well and see how it feels there. But I'm feeling like I really like the changes that Rivian's made in this update. Yeah, I'd say it's much better over the bumps and uneven road surfaces. I know a lot of folks complain about the fact that so many things are controlled by software, but that's one of the great things. On a traditional vehicle, you wouldn't be able to change any of these things. You might be able to take it into a dealer and have them update modules in the vehicle, but aside from that, you're not really going to be able to change too much about the vehicle after it rolls off the assembly line. The wonderful thing about a software-based vehicle like this is that over the air they can fix things, make the vehicle better. And so I definitely think this is the future. So we're going to get on the highway here and we're going to see how it performs on the highway. But I have to say, folks, I really like it. But I totally understand that not everybody is going to like the changes, because just like colors, everyone has different preferences as far as how they want their vehicle to ride and handle. But I can tell you, I really like the way it feels. I don't feel a huge difference on the highway, at least not in soft. So what I'm going to do, folks, is I'll get off the exit here and then I'm going to put it in stiff, and then we're going to see how it performs in the stiff ride mode. We'll see how much of a difference there is. But it doesn't feel like Rivian has sacrificed any of the handling of the truck when they softened up the suspension. If anything, it feels a little more predictable to me now. When I go around a turn and I'm turning the wheel, it actually feels more predictable as to what the vehicle is going to do. So that's another reason why I like it. A really, really good update this time. Doesn't feel like it's diving when I let off the accelerator and it's doing max regen. So I don't see anything like that happening. But let's go ahead and switch it over into stiff now and see what happens. And here in stiff, we'll get back on the highway, do our highway course, and then we'll go back through town and see how it performs there. Okay, we're in stiff, and I can feel there's quite a bit less body roll. Doesn't feel jarring by any means. Of course, we are in all-purpose in a standard ride height. Maybe a little more road feel is coming through. It's not moving up and down quite as much here on the highway. I do notice that in the stiff ride. I don't know, folks. I think I prefer the soft ride better. We'll also try it in sport mode to see if there's any differences there. That will lower us down to the low ride height. But especially for highway driving, I don't see any benefit to switching it into this stiff ride mode. I guess maybe if you're on a really curvy highway, it may keep the vehicle from rolling and pitching a lot. But other than that, I don't see a whole lot of benefit to it. It doesn't change things too much, at least not on the highway. I can definitely feel it's a little stiffer, or a lot stiffer. But in the all-purpose mode, I don't feel that it's really bouncing me a whole lot, at least not so far. I can definitely feel that there's less give over bumps. But I think a big point here, folks, is that stiff in all-purpose should probably be a little bit different than stiff in, say, sport mode. And before, at least I felt that it was the same in all the different modes. So if you set it on soft or stiff, you pretty much felt the same in all the different modes, unless you really changed the ride height. But now I think Rivian has actually made things a little bit different in the different drive modes. The stiff in all-purpose and standard ride height does not feel quite as stiff as it used to be. It feels closer to what soft used to be, honestly. So we'll go here through town and see if we feel any other differences. Definitely feels a little harsher over some of the manholes and things like that. But again, not quite as harsh as it used to be. In a minute here, I'm going to switch it into the sport mode, and we'll see how it is there. Okay, folks, I'm going to put it in sport mode. It's going to put us in the low ride height. Still going to be on stiff. Now, I would expect it to be harsher in the low ride height because there's not as much suspension travel. But let's just see. It still doesn't feel like it's bone jarring. But I can definitely feel a lot more of the road imperfections coming into the vehicle. And I think a lot of what I feel is just because it's in a lower ride height and there's less suspension travel. Not necessarily anything to do with the damping. And just for the record, I am definitely someone who drives around an all-purpose standard ride height soft 98% of the time. Very rarely do I put it in sport mode, but I have numerous times. Seems to drive really nice in sport mode. It's a little more bouncy. The handling is very good. And of course, sport mode is going to be where all the power is available. This thing is just scary fast. I can't really tell, folks, if they've changed the tuning in sport mode. The accelerator does feel a little more responsive, but again, that's going to depend on a lot of different things, like the temperature of the battery, the ambient temperature, just a whole lot of different conditions, state of charge. So it's kind of hard to say there. But overall, I think Rivian has made some really good improvements. A lot of folks may not even really notice the differences, but if you've been driving the Rivian for a while now, you will definitely notice a difference. Especially if you drive primarily in all-purpose in the standard ride height. And I actually like it. My suggestion is, if you don't like the new soft setting, maybe switch it to stiff and see if that does it for you. Because the stiff feels closer to the old soft, and the new soft feels very comfortable, honestly. Okay, everyone, that's going to be it for this one. Remember to like, subscribe, then hit the bell so you get notified anytime we add new content. As always, folks, thank you very much for watching.